Hi, everyone. This is Ken Feudernick, the host of Courageous Conversations about our schools. This is part two of a show we're doing about a program called Student Empathy Network for Diversity, or SEND, which was founded a little over a year ago by Jason Morgan, a teacher at Dominguez High School in Compton, California. In episode one, Jason and I talked about his own experience growing up in South Central LA near Compton and being bused 33 miles away to the city of Northridge, where the demographics were dramatically different from where he lived and would have gone to school. That experience had a lot to do with his creating SEND and wanting students from Compton to spend time with students from other parts of LA. He also wanted students outside of Compton to spend some time in Compton with students from his high school. Well, in addition to having Mr. Morgan back with us, we have some of the students who were part of SEND with us today. We also have a parent who also participated in some of the activities, and so we're going to meet them. But I just want to point out that Catherine Borek, you are also a teacher with Jason, right?
That is correct. I have the honor of teaching with Mr. Morgan at Dominguez High School.
And you, I understand, were also kind of the inspiration for this program, or at least had something to do with leading it. Is that right?
Yeah, we collaborated on it, but it was Jason's idea, and he came to me with this idea and said, "This is something I want to get done." And it just rang so many bells of this is a great idea. So it was fun to jump in, and also because my daughter Tessa is in the program at Marshall, I had two high schools. I had the school where I teach Dominguez, and I have the school where my daughter goes, Marshall High School, and we were able to dip into both of those ponds.
Yeah, well, that's great. And we're going to meet Tessa in just a moment. So I'm going to ask each of you just to introduce yourselves and say, tell our listeners what grade you're in, what high school you attend, and then we're going to come back and ask you to talk more in depth about the SEND program, what it's like to be part of it. So I'm going to start with you, Aiden. Let our listeners know who you are and where you go to school. And I also ask each of you to just talk about one subject that you are particularly drawn to in school.
My name is Aiden Warner. I'm a junior, so 11th grade, and I go to John Marshall High School. And I would say a subject I'm drawn to would definitely be math. It's just something I really do enjoy.
Great. And Aiden, Marshall High School is located where?
It's located in Silver Lake, Los Feliz area.
And how far for people, living in New Hampshire or in Nebraska listening to this, how far away is Silver Lake roughly from Compton?
Silver Lake's probably maybe like a 50-minute drive. It depends on the traffic or the time of day you go, but I would say like 30 minutes to 50 minutes to an hour about is kind of the rough distance.
Yeah, I spent some time in LA, and I know that depending on the time of day, a trip from here to there can take 15 minutes or it might take a couple of hours. So nice to have you with us, Aiden. Max, I'm going to come to you next.
Hi, my name is Maxfield Ney. I'm going into my senior year of high school. I go to the Orange County School of the Arts, which is in Santa Ana. And I'm a total history buff. That's my thing.
And so it's a School of the Arts. So do you take a lot of classes in the arts? And is there one particular art form that you're drawn to?
I take acting classes mostly.
And where you live is about how far from Compton?
Typically an hour away.
Yeah, that gives our listeners a sense of location. Tessa, introduce yourself and tell our listeners who you are.
Hi, I'm Tessa. I'm newly a 12th grader, and I go to John Marshall High School. And the subject, I love school in general, but I'm a big English person. I love literature. That'd be my favorite subject.
And do you like writing as well as reading literature equally well, or are you drawn to one part of English class more than the other?
I love both a lot. I've known that writing is kind of one of my favorite things ever since I was maybe 6 years old. I think it's just such a beautiful art form and so versatile. It really means a lot to me.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for being with us today. Andrea, tell our listeners about you.
Hello, I'm Andrea Ramos. I am an alumni from Dominguez High School, freshman at UC Merced, and subject that I am drawn to is math.
And are you majoring in math at UC Merced?
Yes, I'm majoring in applied math.
Oh, and what do you hope to do with that once you graduate?
Hopefully, you're going to maybe a data field, maybe go into research or use it in a business.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. When I did some work at a school not too far from where you are, up Manual Arts High School. Do you know where that is in South Central LA? It's not that far. Some of you might know where it is, but there was a young woman that I did some work with there that loved math. That she went on to USC and became a civil engineer and worked on high-rise buildings, building some of the biggest buildings in LA. It was very cool to have interviewed her later after she became a civil engineer. So she was able to apply her love for math to a really wonderful career doing civil engineering in LA. And I hope you find some similar passion when you graduate. Well, nice to have you with us, Andrea. Nasir, tell us about you.
Okay, so I'm Nasir. I'm also an alumni from Dominguez High School, and I'm a freshman at Cal State Long Beach, and I am majoring in criminal justice.
Fantastic. And what do you hope to do when you graduate? Do you have an idea yet?
Oh, I want to be a detective.
Terrific. And it looks like we have one more student who just joined us, and that's Aaron. So the timing is perfect.
So I just graduated from Dominguez High School this past year, and then I will be attending UCLA in the fall studying business economics. And you could say I have a kind of business mindset, so you could say that's what I'm passionate about.
You have an idea of what you want to do when you graduate with your business degree?
I know for sure I want to invest back into my city, for sure invest back into Compton, but not for sure what kind of business I do want to run. But I'm very open-minded, so I'm very curious and to explore new options for sure.
Yeah. Well, best of luck with that. So we're gonna shift gears here and talk about this program that all of you participated in called SEN. Again, for our listeners, that's the Student Empathy Network for Diversity. And my first question that I'd like to hear your thoughts about is, when you first heard about it, I'm sure maybe Mr. Morgan came to you, or you got a memo, or somehow you heard about it. And I'm eager to hear what your first impressions were about it, and whether you thought it sounds like a really cool thing, or perhaps I have no idea what this is about. It doesn't really sound like something for me. And then after that, we'll talk a little bit about what it was actually like and what you got from it. Max, how did you find out about it? And what did you think when you first heard about it?
Sure. So my dad, who unfortunately can't be here today, he teaches at Compton High, the other main high school in Compton. And so I've kind of been going there, and I've been doing stuff with his students for forever. But I've always been like a 9-year-old with a bunch of 17-year-olds, which is, awkward. So I think when I heard about this program that I was getting to hang out with kids from Compton that were my age, I thought I was interested, and I thought that was really cool, because I'd always kind of wanted to hang out and sort of be part of, I guess, the Compton space more, because that was a part of his life that I wasn't necessarily attached to. And so I was really excited by this program.
And we'll come back to you in a little bit and talk about what you got from it, and maybe some events or stories that you can share with our listeners. Tessa, let me come to you next. How did you find out about this, and what did you think when you found out about it?
So when my mom first explained this idea to me, the idea of SEN to me, she hadn't even invited me yet, and I had already said, please, I need to be a part of this. I feel like this is the ideal experience. And at first I was very excited, but once I started trying to recruit people from my school, I realized how it was going to be amazing, but a very ambitious undertaking. And I got a bit more nervous, and I'm really grateful for how flexible everyone was, because I remember telling my mom, I think we should wait till next year. I think we should do a lot of work and then do it next year. But I'm really grateful that didn't happen, because it wouldn't be the same. We've had so many experiences that just have changed my life. So I'm glad that my fears were pushed to the side.
Well, you had the benefit of having your mom working at the school that you were going to be connecting with. But I heard you say something about wanting to recruit other students from Marshall. And when I was talking with Mr. Morgan earlier about that, he said that he had heard that there were some students at other schools that were really reluctant or said, why would you want to do that? And aren't you a little bit nervous about it? Did you hear some of that?
I was surprised and disappointed by how much of that I heard. I think students are a lot more shy than they let on sometimes. And this is something that requires not only, it's already tough to talk to people that you don't know, but people with lives so different. And I think there was a lot of stuff that was going on said, and I think people were giving excuses of, oh, I'm busy, but I think people were intimidated. I think they were simply nervous. And it's something where I'm really grateful for the people at Marshall and the people, just everyone that contributed in it, for going past that nervousness, because I think that it was a mark of an extra level of student, that the people that agreed to come, you could tell that they were an extra, not just social, not just really intelligent like Aiden here, like they were also brave.
Perhaps when people listen to this elsewhere and they hear the stories from you and other students that have been in it, it will serve as a recruitment tool, because you're going to have a chance in a few minutes to talk about what you got out of it, and maybe some of the stereotypes and fears people have can be addressed by hearing people who experienced it directly. Well, thank you for that, Tessa. Aaron, I'm going to come to you next and have you talk a little bit about how you reacted when you first heard about it.
Mr. Morgan, he was my teacher for the past 3 years of my high school. And so he came up to me and was like, Aaron, you need to be in part of this program. And I looked at him like, nah, man, I just had you for the last 4 years, 3 years of my high school. I'm trying to get rid of you, man. And so, honestly, he told me about the program. I was kind of nervous. He was saying like, we're gonna room with people. We're gonna stay at each other's houses. He said we're gonna do all these different ideas, and I was just like, I was hesitant at first. I was so like, I don't know about this, Mr. Morgan. I was scared on him almost, and he pushed me and he motivated me to actually try new things and open my mind. And so when I eventually was like, okay, I'm down, let's do this. It was honestly a beautiful experience, and I enjoyed myself.
Thanks, and we'll come back and have you talk in a minute about what it was like to actually do it. Andrea, let's hear your perspective, and what was it like when you first heard about being part of SEND? Were you excited or a little nervous about it?
I was really excited when I heard about the idea. I'm really curious, so I like to look at different perspectives of things. So the way Mr. Morgan had explained the program, I was like, it's a whole different experience, and an experience that I probably wouldn't have gotten if it wasn't for this program. So I was really excited, but I was nervous that my parents, since they work a lot, we don't really have a lot of free time to be going places, but they were really flexible with us and were able to give us a hand so that we were able to participate in a lot of the activities.
Great. And Aiden, I'm going to come to you and talk about what your experience was like just at the beginning phase of this project.
Okay, so I actually was one of the students recruited by Tessa, and it was actually like, I think it was just kind of in the middle of like 6th period math class. I think she just came up to me and was like, hey, I'm having this thing at my house, and gave me like a letter. I was like, okay. And I showed up and I was like, oh, this is a really cool program. And I just kind of, it was something I really was kind of wanted to do, and it just seemed very fun. I always kind of wanted to meet new people. So that just kind of was my first like experience with it. It was very random. The day she kind of walked up and gave me the letter and was like, hey, you should come. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, great. And Nasir, we'll come to you last and just give us your first impressions of this whole thing, and whether you're excited or hesitant.
So I was hesitant too because Mr. Morgan he just kind of comes on really strong when he like wants to propose something, and he'll just kind of like talk you into circles, and you'll be like, yo, like he recruited me a few weeks before, like, and I still didn't know what Send was like while it was going on, and then I remember he had this PowerPoint. He did it in front of me and my grandma, and that's how I learned like everything that was going on. So then by then I was like, yo, like I want to do this. This looks really cool. I don't know about like sleeping over at people's houses or like spending time at someone's house because it was just strange. But even then, like I did that and it was really fun. So it was cool. I was hesitant and a little anxious because I just never experienced that before.
Yeah, yeah. And Catherine, I want to come to you. You're a parent of Tessa, who's in Silver Lake at Marshall High, but you're also a colleague of Jason's. I just want, when Jason came to you with this idea, you said earlier you were down with the idea, but just say a little bit more about what you thought could potentially be the benefits of something like this.
Well, it's all experiment. And I think education is a lot about experiment. When we're stuck in the classroom, we don't get to experiment as much as maybe we want. But with this, Jason and I really got to say, okay, we're going to go outside. We're going to bring in other vendors who can share music and movement and dance. And we got to just kind of create something that we might not get to create in the class. We got to handpick some awesome students who were shower uppers and try new thingers. I'm going to just go with that. And so it was just really exciting to experiment with that idea, and to see what came of it, because when they start telling their stories, I'll be really curious. But one of the things I experienced is every single workshop we had, every single get together we had, I was like, that's my favorite one. That's my favorite one. Each time it was like, this is amazing. And I hope that we get to that point where education is always that exciting.
Yeah, when Jason and I talked earlier, there used to be an attempt to promote equity in our schools through forced busing, and the problem was that not much thought was given to what happens when you arrive at a different place, and so a lot of those schools became segregated, or the hesitation, the fear people had about being around people with different backgrounds and experiences didn't naturally take care of itself. But this program, by design, is bringing people together and doing something which I'm fascinated with, is this idea of movement. And you didn't just come together and sit in a circle and talk. By design, I think the first experience was going to Griffith Park and going on a hike. And what Mr. Morgan told me earlier was that there are some kids from Dominguez and Compton that had really never been hiking before. But let's start there. Who would like to share a story about the hike in Griffith Park and what that was like and what you remember from it? Yeah, please go ahead, Catherine.
This was the beginning, and in the beginning we had a hard time getting people to show up, and so the first two sessions were daunting, and we're like, this isn't going to happen. But what Morgan and I finally were like, whatever happens, and that's fine. And it'll just keep building and keep building. And so I believe, so Max, Andrea, Aaron, and Tessa, you guys were all there, right? Is that our first crew? So that's our first crew who showed up, and you can hear their stories.
Yeah. Well, Max, let's hear from you. What was that first experience like in Griffith Park?
Sure. So for most of it, I don't remember if we exactly paired up or if we just kind of like did it ourselves. I ended up hanging out with this guy named Michael, wasn't here today. And that was an interesting experience because we just kind of nerded out over video games and whatnot, the entire hike-up. That was really nice. And it kind of just, it was this experience sort of demystifying the idea that, we were any different from each other. And the fact that we're kind of just both high schoolers, we like the same things. And that was really great. And I really enjoyed that first time. Yeah.
And Tessa, you were also on that initial hike, right?
I remember really liking Aaron right away. I think we linked that we're both we're we're very, I think people would describe us as very different, but I think we have a lot of similarities in terms of like super social, really love school. And I think we just connected right away. And I remember we did like a scavenger hunt thing where my mom is in love with scavenger hunts because they're a great way to have creativity and adventure and collaboration. And I remember being in a team with Aaron, I believe. And yeah, there was one thing where I think the description was just something big. We needed to find something big on the hike. And I think it was Aaron's idea, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was. There was a full tree trunk, like tree thing on the ground. And we were like, we're picking it up and we're taking it down the mountain because it is big. And it sure was. And we took it all the way down. And I think it was just an example of like very much go big or go home, and in a literal sense. And I remember when we were getting interviewed one-on-one, I overheard Aaron saying sweet stuff about me. And on my interview, I was saying sweet stuff about him. And I just ran over and gave him a hug, like, I really like you, like right away. And I've had huge admiration for him ever since we first met. And that was a really cool first bonding experience.
Great. So Max, you were on that hike. Tessa, you were on that. Who else was on the hike?
I was on the hike.
Aaron, you were?
Yes.
Talk about what that was like for you.
First, I would like to say thank you, Tessa. Like, you're honestly an amazing person, honestly. So thank you so much. The hike was amazing. A little backstory, I brought my mom and dad. And so my dad lives out there in like Silver Lake, around that area. And so my mom and my dad came and we all met up and we all went on this hike. And it was honestly a beautiful experience going up the mountain, talking to new people like from different backgrounds. It was just honestly new to me. And so it was just a new experience. So when we finally got all the way up to the top, we had to do a scavenger hunt. And so me, Tessa, and I forgot who else was on our team, but our team was good. Our team was good. So me, Tessa, we like, let's get this big tree branch, and we ended up carrying it. I remember this, like, I remember this so bad because it was so funny. And so me, Tessa, we went downhill and we carried the tree branch, and it was just an amazing experience. We just bonded so much, me and Tessa, and just everybody else. Like, you could see everybody getting like their little groups and are diversing and talking to other people, and it was honestly an amazing experience.
Andrea, let's hear about your experience being on that hike in Griffith Park.
It was something new because I had never gone hiking or been walking up that steep of a hill or mountain. It was something new, and we also had a brunch right afterwards. I think it was a brunch where we all brought food, and that was a lot of fun. We had, as part of the scavenger hunt, we were supposed to get something that described ourselves. And right after we finished eating, or I think it's before we ate, we grabbed our item and we got in a circle, and then all of us started explaining what it meant to us. I remember my item, I think it was a daffodil, and I said that it's because, oh no, not a daffodil, I think it was a daffodil. Because when you blow on it, it goes everywhere, and it symbolizes me because a lot of parts of me go everywhere. I have many different interests. And I thought that was a lot of fun, getting to know everybody.
That was the first Send activity, and some of you participated. And Catherine, as you said, it was kind of hard to get people, recruiting people to do that first event. But I'm guessing the word may have gotten out as people said that was a really cool experience.
No,
no,
second
it didn't
event,
happen that way.
We had all these RSVPs. And that morning, we're heading down to Compton for this great dance movement program. And almost everyone who RSVP'd, except for what, Morgan? 5 people? Almost everyone canceled their RSVP that morning.
Oh.
And it was one of those things where, it was stressful. This woman is so good at what she does. But in the end, it was okay. It was just what it was, and we went with it because that's just what you had to do, and it was still amazing. And she came back a second time, and more people were able to experience it that time. But again, it's this idea, what I'm seeing, the pattern I'm seeing right now: nature, movement. We do things together. When we move together, when we're in nature together, there's this sort of awe that comes of that, and it's really hard to not see yourself as part of a grand collective and not just me. It's all about that community. And that's what I really love about this program, is how it inspires this sort of this awe of the world.
It's interesting. One of the things I'm learning about the efforts to depolarize schools and to deal with the culture wars is encouraging school board members to get off of the dais, to find neutral ground, and to move, to get outside of the building with parents and with teachers, to spend time sometimes in nature, but definitely moving on sort of equal footing and neutral territory. And there's this thing called contact theory, which this woman, Amanda Ripley, talks about in her book, I Conflict, which is precisely the kind of things that you're doing, but it's meaningful contact and humanizing one another and getting to know one another as people, not just as a teacher figure or an administrator, school board member, or as the angry or parent, but as human beings. And once people get to know a little bit about each other and what they like to do, what subjects they're drawn to, it's much harder to dehumanize and stereotype people. And it sounds like that dynamic is a big part of what's playing out in this SEND program. Jason, you were going to share a thought here.
Yeah, I just wanted to share my gratitude to our SEND family because yes, it was rough getting going. I think even our first hike, right? Like half of or maybe 4 Marshall students, Tessa, like everybody got sick all at once and then couldn't make it. I was like, did you guys really get sick? Is it sick or you're sick? And, you start having those doubts. But then if I would have a doubt, Borek and Tessa, they wouldn't doubt and they would say, let's just keep going, or just being thankful for who showed up, and just the power of our community just kind of keeping us going. And so the idea was just like, no matter what, let's just keep going. And whoever's going to be there, God's going to provide. We just keep on going. So I'm just thankful for folks to encourage me to keep on going, even in moments when I felt discouraged, because right, it's not easy.
Yeah, if I could give a shout out to Nasir, I think Nasir sells the program. He was at the first meeting at our house, and it's hard not to love the guy. He's fantastic, and he's been a huge part of bringing people in and keeping them there and being super encouraging. So big fan.
Well, let's hear from you, Nasir. What tell us about your first experience with it and why Catherine would say that about you and why you're so committed to this program.
I feel like she would say that because I like to think of myself as a people person. A lot of people like to say I like have the gift of the gab, or I like to talk a lot. And honestly, it's just really fun talking with people. Like I can sit here and talk about anything for hours. And I think it's a gift in a way because people like to feel at home. So the more you're just, welcoming and warm with them, the more they feel like they could be comfortable wherever they are. And when someone's comfortable, they like to be comfortable. So if you can make someone comfortable, they can keep coming back and keep just being a part of the program that you're trying to build. So I think that's why.
And Nasir, how do you make people feel comfortable that don't know you?
Well, you got to joke a lot. Yeah, but just try to make them feel make them feel good. Like there's not really a way to do it. It's just being kind, just being kind, being there, and just trying to pique their interest, whatever they're interested in, like tailor it more for them. And then as you gradually get to know them, things kind of just build themselves,
If I could add on to that, and I'd love it if people shared their stories. When we were doing the rock climbing wall, Nasir was cheering people on, and it wasn't just go, you do this, you're so great. He was giving them really specific, put your left hand on the yellow block over there. He was you got this. It was encouragement, but it was also really specific, and he got a lot of people up that wall that day.
I'll just very quickly go back to Amanda Ripley's idea of contact theory. It's actually not her idea. She's studied it and written about it, and it's not just meaningful contact. It's doing just what you said, Catherine, that Nasir was doing. It's working together on a problem. And in this case, it was a rock climbing problem, and there was Nasir helping someone maybe that he didn't know very well up until then figure out how to get to the top of the wall. But that kind of interaction can really solidify pretty quickly relationships with people who are new to you. And do you remember that experience, Nasir, with the rock climbing wall?
Oh yeah, the rock climbing, the little totem ladder thing, the jumping to the ring. Like I remember the like kind of like the walk thing, the pole walk. I was terrified, man. I couldn't even move. And then the more everyone just like helped me out and talked to me, like I ended up walking on it like 3 or 4 times. Like, and that kind of tells the story of just people being there for you and being like kind. It alleviates all the pressure you have. It makes you feel at home, and it allows you to be yourself and just have fun.
I'm going to ask anyone that would like to raise your hand and just let me know if you have another story to share about being part of this program and what it meant to you and perhaps what it meant to others who were in the program. So I'm going to go to Aaron first and then Tessa next.
Okay, I wouldn't say it's my favorite moment, but one of my moments that really stand out is when we did yoga. I want to say that was we did yoga at the Compton airport. Let me give you a little backstory. What's it called? It was early in the morning. I just had a horrible, yesterday was just terrible for me. So just coming there, seeing these beautiful faces, everybody was smiling, just a beautiful setting, honestly. So, I just remember, Bobby who led the yoga instruction, and he graduated from Dominguez High School. And so what's it called? I just remember just everybody just so relaxed, so calm, and just talking to Mr. Morgan. Mr. Morgan was right there, and us just bonding, and just I don't know who it was. I think it was Tessa, or it was somebody else, and whoever was just sitting next our circle, just bonding and just talking and collaborating with each other. And it was just beautiful, honestly, because they released so much stress from me, and it made me my heart less heavy, and made me just be in a moment, honestly. And so I feel like that's what sin does. It's just an amazing experience, honestly. It's just so many things I could talk about. I can't even just talk about one, but that moment right there, that bad day, and just waking up that next morning knowing everything's gonna be all right, that was the beautiful lesson.
Yeah. Tessa, do you remember that experience?
I do remember that, and I got a little bit emotional while Aaron was talking. I was surprised by that because it's yoga. I'm not much of a yoga person. This is what made me like yoga. But just thinking about how much experiences like that of us all trying new things together, and kind of loving new things together, there are very few experiences that have meant more to me in my entire life than Send has. And I feel like the yoga is just one example of just exploring the world and finding new activities and in just the most random. When I was telling people, oh yeah, sorry, I can't hang out Saturday, I have to go to the Compton airport to do yoga, it's just a lot of random aspects coming together. And I went to yoga every Saturday until I had summer vacation, so I couldn't go for one, but I went every single one because I got to see everyone.
It sounds like you've created some pretty tight, lasting bonds with people that have been part of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of the greatest people I've ever met.
So, Max, I want to come to you. Do you have an experience you want to share, something that you did that's particularly memorable? And if so, what did it mean to you? And what does it mean to you now?
Yeah, I do actually. I remember, so Nasir, he was able to trek out to my house and stay the night, which was really cool. But then I just remember the next morning, and we kind of just talked about what it was like just to sort of be two people coming from different sort of economic backgrounds, two different cities, from Compton and my city, Silverado. But it was still possible to be together and still be friends and still hang out, but still recognizing that. And I remember the previous day we kind of walked around my workplace in just this sort of city in Santa Ana. And, you just kind of look around and stuff's different, but the people are still the same, I think, in a sense. And people are still really great, and they're nice, and they're capable of just being really empathetic, even if, your circumstances are different. And even, and so I think that sort of moment, when that next morning we were talking about it, it was really refreshing. And it was good to know that, we still, we're able to have that sort of difference in our lives. We still could be friends. And that felt really good.
Nasir, what do you remember from spending the night at Max's house?
Just seeing that nice house, man. It's a really beautiful home, but just being out with them the whole day, it shows that people are different, right? And people come from different places, but like Max was saying, in a sense, we're all kind of the same. We're all people. We all share the same problems. We all got things we do. Like Max works at a movie theater. Like I used to want to work at a movie theater. Like we have so many similarities, and we don't come from places that are the same. Like we come from two different places, yet it's like we have so much in common. We have so much we can bond and connect over. Like I still think about the Frida all the time. Like, man, like I just be thinking like I gotta go through there again. Because it's just how good it was to be there and get to talk to new people. And I met that one guy, Max. Remember that one guy? He made me take a picture with him, and I was just outside, like sitting, and he just walked up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, you want to take a picture?" Like, just little things like that. It makes you feel really good, and it's really nice because when you're going to different places that you've never been before, you don't really think stuff like that's possible.
I should say one of the things we were trying to do that we didn't do this year, and Max and Nasir got to do it. They got to spend the night at each other's house. We also were trying to get so that the kids would shadow each other at school. And I'm sure Morgan told you about that in the first hour. Morgan, is that true?
He did allude to it, yeah.
Yeah. And because Compton Unified, we had permission for that. LAUSD, we did not. We're still working on that. But Max and Tessa were able to shadow let's see, Max, you shadowed Michael, who's not here today, and Tessa, you shadowed Andrea, right? And so that was letting them see the different worlds, not just the home life, not just going and doing these different activities together. But one of Mr. Morgan's points was, do we have an inequity in our educational system, and do we need to address that? And so Tessa and Andrea and Max, if you'd like to talk about that, that'd be great.
Max, you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I shadowed Michael, and that was a really interesting day, because I went to Dominguez, and something I found really interesting, is that Dominguez actually had a lot of extracurriculars and a lot of extra opportunities, especially regarding college and helping kids figure out college and deciding where to go, than my school did, and I had a much vaster amount of resources, in that sort of sense, which I found very different. And I think it kind of made me realize that, even a school, going to Dominguez and seeing, oh, wow, this is like the school itself has these better opportunities. But if we're still talking about inequity in education, what's sort of the issue here? Which I guess, because we sort of talked about that on the last day as well. And I guess it kind of made me realize that maybe the inequity is more in the community itself than the education, and that's sort of where it stems from. And so I feel like that's sort of what I got out of that day, is seeing that, even if you have, the school, which in some ways is better than my own, which I thought was really cool, that there's, when we're looking at the issues that some of the kids in Compton were having and with their school, and with, their own lives, I thought that was interesting.
And who else participated in was it Nasir that also participated in a shadowing? Let's go to Andrea first and then Tessa. Who did you shadow, and what was that experience like for you?
Tessa shadowed me for online classes, and I think, I was at first I was a little scared that maybe it'd be uncomfortable for both Max and Tessa to shadow us because our classes are extremely packed for a tiny amount of space. But it was actually pretty nice, except that the Wi-Fi had gone off for the first half of the day, so they couldn't get to experience it to the full extent. But we tried our best. But it was nice. I was hoping that nothing went wrong that day, so that they didn't feel unsafe or uncomfortable.
Tessa, what was that experience like for you?
That might have been the experience I was most nervous for, because I love doing new things. I love being around new people, but I was worried about feeling like I was intruding, like I was just sitting in on this class and people were like, Jesus, I'm just trying to have my day now. We have to do a whole thing. But Andrea was so including, and she had me like eat lunch with all of her friends, and I felt very included. I felt like I was not like a burden, which was great. And Andrea, she's a very nice person and just also a really great student. And so to see how she performed in class and what class she's taking, she's a year older than me, so it was very inspiring just to see like this is what I want to be doing next year. And also she points out some good issues that affect my school too, overcrowding in classrooms and lack of constant like Wi-Fi support. It's a thing, and it's something that to see that it's an issue in both of our schools, I think that's something that can be addressed more. It's just, and I feel like that might be more of an issue just in public schools in general, lack of adequate funding for students that are just as deserving as funding as schools that are private and get tuition. So it was a really great experience.
So I take it you really noticed quite a difference between the facilities that you're at in Silver Lake at Marshall and what was going on at Dominguez, or not so much?
Well, really not so much. There was obviously a difference. The biggest difference was the racial split. My school is probably about 60+%. My mom might correct me. It's mostly students of Latino descent and a small white percentage, a small but loud white percentage, I will say, as part of that white percentage. Like, damn, they're kind of overwhelming. But Dominguez is also mostly Latino, but also has a very large Black population. My school does not have a very large Black population, and very few white people, no white people, I'd say, at Dominguez. And so people saw me, and it was an anomaly. I remember going into a bathroom at one point, and girls noticed me. Like, they were like, "What? Like, hi, what are you up to? Like, what's going on?" And I hope this isn't too like risque of a thing to mention, because Nasir and Morgan and I kind of have a sense of humor, but I was in the bathroom for a while talking to the girls, and when I came back, Morgan and Nasir went, "Oh, Tessa, we were worried we can't lose a white girl, Tessa. They'll put us underground." And I hope they're laughing right now. They're on mute, but and Nasir was like, "Tessa, if that happened, they'd make a documentary about you. They'd be like, what happened to Tessa?" And it was pretty funny how just differently people saw me, but it was so different, but in terms of general facilities, strangely the same.
Yeah, that's a big Black man fear. Historically speaking, Black men and white women, there's, we've gotten a lot of, danger in that dynamic. So it's kind of like dark humor that we're speaking, but it has some, historical ties of why that fear is like in us.
We're getting close to the end of our time, and I want to do a couple of things. I want to come to you, Aiden, because I want to hear about an experience that you remember that had an impact for you in being part of SEND. And then I want to just throw out the question for people listening that are thinking, we might want to do this in our community or across communities, and what advice you might have for them, both in terms of recruiting people to be part of it. And I don't just mean students, but teachers. So I think Catherine and Jason, I need to hear from you about what you would say to other teachers elsewhere in the country that may be hearing this and saying, I really love this idea. I don't know how to get it started. And then from the students, if you could imagine students listening to this, what would you say to them about why they might want to give it a shot and overcome their fears about doing something that sounds kind of unusual? But Aiden, I want to come to you and just hear about your experience being part of this and experience that maybe had an impact on you.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of positive experiences that I can name, but I think probably the number one most impactful for me was definitely the SEM Summit, where we did this kind of community building. So we would get kind of I think it was like 4 different groups, and we would all have to kind of build like up our own town. And Mr. Morgan was the city council member. He was like the mayor, who had to kind of like watch over everybody. And we had to go to him for like approval to build things to get permits. And it was just it was very enlightening and crazy for me to, or like, I guess it was like a real kind of shocker, something that really hit me to see kind of just the difference in approving and funding different communities get when you look at it like how we saw it in terms of I was able to build with kind of like what I would say is probably my actual community in real life. And I saw other communities and how they are able to survive and thrive, and how also a lot of them were also kind of held back just by people in power because they just didn't want to see them succeed, which was a very enlightening kind of thing, which I felt was the most impactful probably thing we did.
Thank you, Aiden. And lastly, I just want to come to all of you and just you don't necessarily have to chime in if you don't have a thought you want to share on this question, but what is it that you would say to others that are thinking about doing this and how they could get something like this off the ground? Aaron?
If I was to talk to other students, I would tell them to be open-minded. Never let fear stop you from accomplishing or trying new things. Also say saying it's just an amazing opportunity. Like, you got to take advantage of opportunities, and that's what people don't do a lot in our community and in others. And we talked about this. Just people in our community need to take advantage of opportunities like this. Having a community bridge together, it's just an amazing experience that we can't express enough, but you have to be there and be a part of it to honestly see.
Thank you for that, Aaron. Who else has some words of encouragement? Nasir?
So Mr. Morgan used to talk about this thing since I was like a freshman. He used to talk about going into things with a growth mindset and a fixed one. So I'd say just for people that are going into something new, especially something like this, have that growth mindset, have that mindset to learn new things, try new things, and meet new people, because what comes out of it can only be beneficial. Because like at the end of the day, you're trying something new, and the more you try something new, the more you grow, and growing is always good for yourself.
Nasir, thank you for that. Any other hands? Tessa, please.
I'll go quickly because I know we don't have much time, but as the person, I was doing a lot of the recruiting for students. This is more advice for people that are trying to recruit people for something like this. I have two main pieces of advice. Understand when things are going wrong and don't try to make them go exactly the way you wanted them to. They're never going to go the exact way you wanted them to. And it's going to be kind of awesome no matter what way they go if you're working with good people, which we were. And number two, the most important thing, you want to find people smart, you want to find them social. The most important aspect, we've kind of mentioned this before, find people that show up, find people that are reliable, because that's how you know it. Like, that's how you know stuff's going to get done. And I think if you're trying to recruit people, find the people that you know you can count on.
Max, did I see your hand up?
Yeah. I guess my piece of advice is just, for anyone who's thinking about doing this, I think whenever you get the chance to just be with people who think differently, who live differently, do it. Mm-hmm. Because just going out into the world, the more you know, the better. And, I think one of the easiest, honestly, I've learned so much being around these people who are just different than me, and seeing how they lived life rather than maybe how I think their life is like. And that's, so it's totally polarized. And so the more you can just be with different people, the better you're going to understand this world. So just do it.
Terrific advice for all of us, and not just for students, but all of us who find ourselves in our silos and walled off from people that we would benefit by interacting with. It's great advice, especially in these polarized times. Andrea, any advice for others that might be interested in doing what you've done in Compton and elsewhere in LA?
I have sort of the same thoughts as Nasir and Aaron, to go in with an open mind. You never know what you're going to get out of it. And also if you're going to do it, go in with everything. Don't just leave it halfway done. Get involved with everything if you can. Just take the opportunity, because you never know when another one will arise, and you never know what type of people you'll meet.
Aiden, any final thoughts and advice for people?
Yeah, I would. It's kind of reiterating what Max said, and just getting a lot of people from different backgrounds would just kind of be my best guess or best advice I would say. Because just like even from your own school, because you may take one person from one school and other people have a totally different perspective just because schools nowadays are getting so large. It's just, I think taking kind of a few different people from every like section of one school and meeting with a few people from every section of another school would be, my best advice.
Yeah, the challenge in my mind is how do you take this to scale? I mean, there is a handful of you that have demonstrated the power and benefits of something like this. And what I heard Jason, you and Catherine saying was just the bureaucratic hurdles that you had to overcome just in allowing a district to allow people from another school just to show up and what you had to go through. But it sure seems like it could be beneficial to design something. And Jason, you say you were a designer, but you ought to be able to come up with some way to bring this to scale because you've demonstrated, you've proved the concept. I think that's clear. But then the question is, how do we do this and so that hundreds, thousands of students could experience this and know going into high school that somewhere along the line they were going to experience something like this. You have any thoughts about that, Jason, about how to bring this to scale?
I think definitely what we did this year is part of that, right? Bringing it to scale. A lot of apprehension was this is new, this is unfamiliar, I don't know what this is. And contrary to popular belief, most folks don't like trying things that are new and unfamiliar, you found. Um, and the power of our relationships, right? You heard about Nasir and Aaron. They're like, no, man, you doing too much. And they right, I do too much. But I think because we had relationship, they went along with me. And having, like you said, this proof of concept, people need to see it in order to believe in it and say, oh, let's try that. So the first steps are really having the pioneers, our first Sin fellows, actually the ones who took the plunge, who had that trust and that faith, and they made it happen. And really using that to tell our story so that other folks will say, yeah, I want to be a part of that. What are the barriers that are getting in the way to bringing it to other people? And then we just need those supporters. But I think what we've done, proving the concept and having the stories and documenting it, it was a very big part of it, is crucial.
Yeah. Catherine, final thoughts from you about the impact this whole thing has had on you as a parent, as an educator, and how we inspire and help people elsewhere do what you've done here on in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, I think, you know what, this year, this program was one of my absolute favorite things that has happened during my teaching career because I got to see my Compton family that I've been teaching at Compton for 28 years, and it is my family through and through. And I'm looking at you guys and I'm thinking, God, I love them like they're my own flesh and blood. And I got to see my daughter, who is my literal flesh and blood, these two families come together. And you have no idea how much that means. I remember Nasir and Miriam and Zen, two of whom are not on this, they came to Tessa's birthday party and did that circle dance. You showed up right in time for the circle dance. I remember Tessa seeing you guys looking fabulous at prom. And I will say, if I can be honest here, Tessa had a horrible day and did not want to go to their prom, not because of you, but because she was having a catastrophic day. And she got there and she saw her people at their prom, saw them looking beautiful. Andrea's hair freshly cut, like you looked like a queen that night, Andrea. And it was just something about those connections that they made helped bring all of them up. And as a mother and as a teacher, I got to see my daughter be better because of the people she met at Dominguez. And that's a program as far as scaling, it's a city exchange program. We have these foreign exchange programs, so we have models for it. And now this is just within your own city, within your own state. How do we create these avenues so people can meet each other and see each other face to face, off the computer, touching, jumping, clapping. Remember that clap thing we did? I loved that. Like all these things that get to our heartbeat and get to our movement and get to our human side. Because when we are being human, we are being the best people that we can be.
I'm going to let that be the last word for now, but not the last word in terms of what this program becomes in the future. And I am confident that this will inspire other people across the country. And maybe we have listeners around the world who I'm sure are faced with a similar challenge and a desire to want to connect people together, especially in this world that is becoming increasingly polarized. So I want to thank all of you for making time at a very busy time when school is just starting up again to be part of Courageous Conversations about our schools. And with that, I'm going to sign off, wish all of you well. And for listeners out there, you can find this episode along with part 1 of this episode at schoolconversations.org and on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Thanks to all of you for being part of the show. Bye-bye, everyone.